This video is an update on the pawpaw trees I planted a few years ago. What follows is based on my own observations only. I am located in Canada, more specifically in Zone 5, so my experience could differ from that of people growing pawpaw trees in warmer temperate climates, in the US for example. Moreover, it is generally accepted that Zone 5 in Canada is harsher than Zone 5 in the US. So my failures, if any, should not lead you to think that growing pawpaw trees in Zone 5 is doomed for failure. Conversely, since I've put some effort in creating in my garden a sheltered environment, some would say a microclimate, my successes, if any, should not lead you to think that growing pawpaw trees in Zone 5 is a walk in the park. But if you stick with me until the end, I will share with you my top pawpaw cultivar to grow in cold climates. First, let's start with the grafted pawpaw trees I planted last spring, 12 months ago. The first one was a NC-1 pawpaw in a 1-gallon pot. NC-1 is a cultivar from Canada that is supposed to be quite cold-hardy and early ripening, adapted to Zone 5 northern climates. Unfortunately, my NC-1 never saw the light of its first winter in my garden. Actually, it never saw the light, period, as it never lived out after I planted it. It did not even produce any green buds. I'm not sure what happened there, but I believe the root system was a bit dry when I unboxed it. The other pawpaw cultivar I planted 1 year ago was a Susquehanna, which for many pawpaw lovers is the best tasting pawpaw. I really wanted this one to succeed. Contrary to the NC-1, the Susquehanna produced 1 or 2 green swelling buds, but they quickly shriveled. Ironically, it was not the harsh winter that killed both the NC-1 and the Susquehanna. And in case you were wondering, they were shaded and properly watered. I would suggest inspecting the roots of your pawpaw trees after unboxing. If the root system appears to be dry, weak, or little developed, the best course of action is not to plant the pawpaw in the ground, but in a slightly bigger pot and place the pot in a greenhouse or sheltered area for a year, until it develops a stronger root system. While I believe this will not have resurrected the NC-1, for the Susquehanna this could have made a difference. Next, let's move on to the first pawpaw I ever planted in this garden 3 years ago. It was also a grafted tree, a mango cultivar. It survived its first winter, so I decided to fertilize it after a year in the ground, which turned out to be a big mistake as the tree quickly started to drop all its leaves, and the main stem eventually completely dried out. Shortly after this catastrophe, I ordered a couple of grafted pawpaw trees, but I decided not to plant them where I had planted the mango pawpaw, fearing that the soil there was still too fertilized for my new pawpaw trees. A year later, in spring, something green emerged from under the wood chips. I initially thought it was a volunteer maple seedling, since I have many big maple trees around the garden. But towards the beginning of the summer of that year, it became clear that the leaves were pawpaw leaves. My mango pawpaw had come back from the dead. Well, technically, since it dated back to at least the craft union, it was no longer a mango cultivar. Nevertheless, I was quite happy about this. Fast forward to this spring, the new growth had developed multiple stems. I'm going to keep all the stems for now and see how the overall shape evolves over time without pruning. Or maybe I will graft different cultivars on each stem. For future updates on this one, don't forget to subscribe and activate notifications. To conclude, I would say that if for whatever reason your grafted pawpaw dies, wait for a year before replacing the tree. It seems that the root system of this tree is quite resilient, even in Zone 5. This is exactly what I decided to do with the NC-1 and the Susquehanna pawpaws for now, even though they both died back to well below the graft union. Before switching to my other grafted pawpaw trees, I would like to talk about my pawpaw seedlings. I got 7 of them the same year I planted my grafted mango cultivar. The seedlings were all 1 year old when I planted them along with the mango pawpaw. I got the seedlings during summertime while on a camping trip to the south, and I had to keep them in the car for almost a week before I was able to transplant them in the ground. They were all lifted out by then and looked a bit sad the whole summer after transplanting, but they all survived the first winter. Contrary to the mango pawpaw, they were not provided with any fertilizer after the first winter. The seedlings did not lose their leaves and have grown without any major issues, which tends to confirm that improper fertilization was what killed the mango pawpaw. However, I have noticed that a few of my pawpaw seedlings will exhibit some dieback or breakage at the tips when comes springtime. My best guess is that if during a winter the snow cover drops below the tip of a pawpaw seedling, that pawpaw seedling can suffer from dieback if it is then exposed to the cold wind. The dieback, if any, is usually rather limited, and other than that, all my pawpaw seedlings have grown steadily, albeit slowly, over the last 3 years. This spring, they haven't seemed quite vigorous to me, with many more green buds compared with the previous years. Finally, let's talk about my 8 grafted pawpaws I planted 2 years ago. As of the making of this video, in spring 2025, they are all still alive. My 3 KSU pawpaws are doing great. KSU Chappell is, according to some sources, the fastest growing cultivar on average. But that has not been my experience so far, as my KSU Chappell is noticeably smaller than my KSU Atwood and my KSU Benson pawpaws, even though the 3 pawpaws were planted in the same area of the garden. I must mention that the Atwood and Benson were planted in full sun, while the Chappell is located behind a compost bin, with potentially lower sunlight exposure, although they all have been shaded to protect them during the hottest summer days for the last 2 years. That being said, the KSU Chappell is not the smallest among my 8 grafted pawpaw trees. My smallest one is the Pennsylvania Golden. I have not seen any comments online about it being a slow grower, so I'm not sure what to make of this observation. I mainly got it because it is supposed to be cold hardy down to zone 4. Well, in this regard, I can attest that it has survived so far in Canadian zone 5, which some people may equate to USD zone 4. But my other grafted pawpaws, which are rated zone 5, have also survived. My Mary's Joy, Sunflower, and Potomac pawpaws have not grown as fast as the KSU Atwood and Benson, but they have put on a decent size. Of note, according to some sources, Sunflower has shown to be self-fertile, and Potomac is said to be precocious. I cannot confirm nor deny the self-fertility of Sunflower, but with regards to Potomac being precocious, I can definitely say that based on my own experience, another pawpaw cultivar was more precocious than Potomac. Among all my pawpaws, including the seedlings, my Shenandoah has consistently been the fastest growing since I planted it 2 years ago. As of spring 2025, it has remained the tallest and largest of the bunch. I must say that I got it in a 1-gallon pot, so maybe it benefited from a better head start with a more developed root system, compared with the other grafted pawpaws that were shipped to me in smaller 1-liter pots. Despite it being my tallest pawpaw, and being always among the pawpaws exposed to the wind when the snow cover subsides, it has never suffered any dieback over the last 2 years, while even some of my seedlings were affected by the cold Canadian winters. Some sources indicate that Shenandoah is cold hardy down to USDA zone 4. I'm in Canadian zone 5, which again some people may consider equivalent to USDA zone 4, so I think it would be safe for me to say that this pawpaw cultivar exhibits top-tier cold hardiness. Subscribers of this channel probably know that I got my potted soursop tree to flower indoors last winter. I was hopeful that it would flower again for me this past winter, but it did not. More on that in another video. However, in early May this year, when I was checking on my pawpaws, without a shadow of a doubt, I immediately spotted a flower bud on my Shenandoah. Pawpaws belong to the Annonaceae family of plants, just like soursops and sweetsops. At an early stage, the flower buds look quite similar. And what's better than one pawpaw flower to make up for no flowers on my soursop tree? Well, 2 pawpaw flowers, of course. I must say that was a real surprise. Only 2 years after planting, my Shenandoah is already flowering, and it's not even 3 feet tall. It seems sometimes when you try to manifest something, the universe gets back at you with something else. And that something else can be a pleasant surprise. It's just a matter of attachment to the expected outcome. Cold-hardy, fast-growing, and precocious, Shenandoah is definitely my top pick pawpaw to grow in colder climates. The fruits are said to be mid to early ripening, with a flavor that is appreciated by many pawpaw lovers. On these two aspects, I cannot confirm yet, and it is unlikely that my Shenandoah will set fruit this year since it needs to be cross-pollinated. But who knows? So don't forget to bring some popcorn next time.